we have a special guest for our special weekly topic, and our guest today is Stacy Fahrion. If you haven't heard of Stacy, you should have. Her music is some of my absolute favorite on Piano Pronto's composer community, and that's saying a lot because there are some amazing composers in there. And she's here today to talk to us especially about polyrhythms. So welcome to the show, Stacy.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you. Well, sort of with you.
With you virtually, yeah, it counts. It's so good to finally meet you because I feel like I've known you for so long because I've followed your music for so long, but I haven't actually met you in person. So it's so good to be able to connect like this online and to share your thoughts with everyone in our community here. Before we get to all the polyrhythm stuff and all that fun, can you first tell us a little bit more about yourself, Stacey? What's your musical background? How did you end up doing this?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So I actually got my master's in piano performance and pedagogy back in 2003, I think. And then I actually didn't do much with music for about 10 years after that. And then went through some life situations, and then kind of turned to composing as an outlet. And so I started composing in this whimsically macabre style right around 2012, and at some point met Jennifer Eklund, and she started publishing my music, and everything has just been wonderful since then. It's been kind of amazing.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's
I don't
incredible.
know.
And you're, I guess, next year coming up on your 10-year anniversary, which I noticed as you were speaking because it's also that's when I got married. So I'm like, 10 years coming up on 10 years, like my marriage, your composing
Yeah, I'll
marriage.
have to figure out what the 10-year gift is. Yeah. So,
Yes, you have to get yourself something to mark the occasion. That's awesome. Well, as I said, I absolutely love your music, and I hope people will check it out and find you on the composers community on pianopronto.com. Now,
thank
we
you so
said we
much.
would talk specifically about polyrhythms today because you have a new book, new-ish, anyway, fairly new, book about polyrhythms with some different examples. It's really unique in its approach. But I'd love to know before we dive into what's in the book and the structure you've taken there, what made you want to cover this topic? What made you want to dive into something that isn't the least intimidating to cover?
Yeah, I've been a little obsessed with rhythm for years, and I think it started, well, I can pinpoint when it started because I discovered BC Manjunath has this YouTube channel where he's constantly posting South Indian or Carnatic kind of experiments where he's reciting conical usually, and I just like was astounded at the rhythmic feats that he
Mm.
accomplishes. And so I actually began by writing lots of stuff in odd meters and playing with rhythmic displacement. And the next logical step was really polyrhythms. Um, so I'm just a little rhythm obsessed, and it's probably BC Manjunath's fault. I've taken a lot of classes with him and some other people who are also obsessed with rhythm. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how it happened.
Oh,
And
that's
I felt
awesome.
like I struggled sometimes to convey with students like polyrhythms, and I realized I needed a better method for strategically introducing this. And really what I tried to do in the book was, I tried to do a whole bunch of things, but I tried to strategically introduce these so that they're not intimidating, and also tried to give students an opportunity to improvise with these rhythms, because I really strongly believe that the best way to learn anything is just to kind of make it your own and create something with it. And then I also, because I couldn't resist, I tried to introduce all the modes along with the polyrhythms. So I had students improvising like in Lydian mode with a specific polyrhythm, um, just because I feel like all of that stuff is sometimes neglected. Like our students learn their major and minor scales and then they're done, but but no, there's so many more scales out there and modes and things to experiment with. So
Yeah, I love that. And it's like you've taken the two things that are often neglected and just brushed past. We just say, oh yeah, there's modes, they're kind of like this. Let's go over here now. Like, that's a whole other thing. Let's not get into it. But I mean, it's great to be able to explore it as well as polyrhythms and to have a dedicated way to explore it. Like, I love the way the book is laid out, because I don't know about most people. In fact, I'd love to hear from people in the chat what way they were introduced to polyrhythms, even 2 against 3. The classic here is just nice cup of tea, is basically all you're told, is to do nice cup of tea. And that works out well because we're Irish, so we drink tea all the time, and then that's about it. But I'd love to know if other people had more comprehensive training, or if you didn't even get that and they just said, just do something about it, or dove into the maths, because that's how I understood it, but that's not going to be appropriate for many, many kids. To me, I automatically want to work out everything mathematically, but that's not most children, so it's great to have another approach to it. Do you remember, Stacey, what way it was approached in your own studies? Did you get any introduction before later meeting a whole world of polyrhythms and getting involved with it?
yeah, I believe I was told just to play, like, if it was 4 against 3, I would play 4 and make sure that was steady and like with the metronome, and then play 3 with the metronome, and then just like make sure the first beat lines up. So I don't have a strong memory, but I think that's how I was taught, because like with the famous Chopin Fantasy Impromptu, I couldn't play it slowly because I didn't quite know how the 4 against 3 composite rhythm sounded when I learned it. And so when I return to that piece now, I still don't think my polyrhythm is as precise as it, because I just can't unlearn the way I learned it. So I feel like teaching the composite rhythm is so important. Like Hot Cup of Tea is the composite rhythm. So that's actually a beautiful way of learning 2 against 3, where you just know it's 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then you can separate that out. But once you get into the higher level ones, it becomes obviously a lot more complicated, but you can still use that same system and that's what I try to convey in the book is first you do need to get really used to switching divisions. So I have some exercises where you're ideally you put your metronome on when you do this, but you switch between dividing the beat by 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. And I feel like 5 is the most difficult because we don't do that as often. So I included like a scale exercise where you just do that, and I think it's fun. My students probably would argue with me. I'm like, here's another fun scale exercise you can do. Like, it's really awesome. And they're like, oh, here she goes again.
I actually think students can often really love that if it's challenging enough. I think if we give them scale exercises that are too easy, or rhythm exercises like that, where they can almost do it, but they can't really quite do it perfectly, so we're making them stick with it, like that's what's boring. When it's really hard, that's when they are like, oh, well, I'll grasp this nettle, I'll take it on, you know? So yeah, that's fantastic. And 5 is definitely going to be the most challenging for most students, isn't it? So tell us more about the layout of the book. Where does it go from there? You start with these scale type exercises, is that right?
Yeah. Is it helpful if I just play a couple of
Sure,
these?
yeah, absolutely.
So it starts with the rhythm exercise that's dividing 2 and then 3 and then 4 and 5. Let me switch my camera view to my, well, I'll do my face and my keyboard because I don't trust myself to switch back. Okay. So the first rhythm exercise is, it's in G Lydian, because I couldn't just do a G5 finger pattern. So you start with 2 and 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, and ideally you would do this with the metronome on, but I just didn't turn mine on. And then it does that more quickly. So you do 2 of 2, 3 of 3, 4 of 4, and so on, and then just 1 of each. So that's kind of a preliminary exercise, and then I take it to this scale exercise, which a lot of you probably do this exercise already in your studios, where you do like 1 octave quarter notes, 2 octaves eighth notes, 3 octaves triplets, 4 octaves sixteenths. And I've done that one frequently. That's a great one. This one is just kind of a twist on that includes the quintuplets. So at the end, there are 2 octaves only of quintuplets. And it also has this, well, I'll show you, but when you get to the bottom of the scale, you don't stop at the tonic. So students get extra practice doing this bottom turnaround. So I'll just demonstrate that too. Hopefully I can play my scales in front of a bunch of piano teachers. Okay. So 2, 3, 4, 5. It is nerve-wracking to play your scales in front of piano teachers.
It definitely is. I know that feeling so well, Stacey. I have all the empathy for you. You did great. Oh, it's wonderful to see it come to life.
So those are preliminary exercises, and then the next the next exercise is also something you don't even need the book for this. Basically, I just am doing a repeated pattern of 3 notes over and over in the right hand that never changes. So that's your constant. 1, 2, 3. You can choose any notes you want. I chose these 3. So that's my 3 pattern, and then I'm basically just playing every 2 notes in the left hand. So this is another preliminary exercise, and then I switched to playing, if I did every 3 notes, it would line up perfectly, so I switched to playing every 4 notes in the left hand. And if you took out the extra notes there, you're actually playing a 4 against 3 polyrhythm. And then I go on to every 5 notes in the left hand. So you just practice that, and I actually put in 7 against 3, because in this method, it's actually pretty easy to play 7 against 3. Every 7 notes. And you just start nice and slow. And then if you feel like a challenge with this particular exercise, you can actually leave out the extra notes in the right hand, and then you're playing a straight up 2 against 3 polyrhythm. Same thing here. So then you're playing 4 against 3. So this is a really systematic approach where I meant to write in the book that you can repeat all these measures ad lib as many times as your heart desires until you really internalize these rhythms. But that's another exercise that kind of leads to the introduction of the polyrhythms. There's another exercise, an etude in groups of 4 and an etude in groups of 5, which both do the same thing, just with larger groups in the right hand that never vary. And then getting into how I teach polyrhythms, there are these, I don't know if I can hold this up to the camera and you can see it, but in the book, you can see that there are, let me find the right page. There are little diagrams for visual learners, like that show, I'm not holding this up right, yeah, show how the polyrhythm looks on sort of a clock face, and then a graph that shows how it divides between the hands. And instead of hot cup of tea, I use not difficult for 2 against 3. But basically what I would have students do first is not difficult, or hot cup of tea, hot cup of tea. So they learn the composite rhythm first, and then between the hands they can tap it. So if you're doing 2 in the right hand and 3 in the left hand, hot cup of tea, not difficult, not difficult, not difficult. And then they might just start playing notes with it. And then you go into an improv exercise. So I have an improv suggestion, but students can just go their own way if they feel like it. They don't have to follow the improv suggestion. But this would sound like this particular improv is in E Phrygian, so just all the white keys on E. So I just throw in a little mode there, but and they just would play that rhythm over and over again. So that's kind of how I introduce it. Actually, I went probably way too quickly through all of that. So
no, but it still gives us a wonderful introduction to the method. I'll just show folks that part of the book that you were talking about, which is this right here, just so that they can see a little bit more clearly. So it's got these beautiful diagrams, and also this is really useful so that people can see it lining up with the numbers, and you could even write in the words not difficult or nice cup of tea or whatever they're using for a particular pattern could be written in there lining up with that for those who are struggling to see it matching up. But it's a great opportunity to practice it, and I just love that you immediately take it and go, okay, now improvise with it, now use it, it's music, and it sounds awesome. I mean, especially since you've given them that lovely Phrygian scale. It's just like opens up the whole, oh, this is what cool music sounds like. Like, this isn't just some silly exercise.
Thank you. Yeah, I just feel like I watched your interview with June Armstrong, and I was so impressed with what she said. She had some addendum to all of her books where she said, like, just, feel free to do your own thing. I'm paraphrasing, but like, do your own thing as long as it's musical. And I totally agree with that. Like I just want other people to experience the joy of improv and composition. And so if they just want to stop playing my music and start writing their own thing right in the middle, I'd actually prefer that. Yeah, so then there's an etude based on that rhythm. So the next etude, Distant Bells. I introduce all of these rhythms in the etudes with more subdivisions, and then I gradually delete them until you're basically playing the polyrhythm. And I feel that that's one of the best methods for learning any complicated rhythm, is actually to add extra notes and then delete them, but you still kind of hear them while you're doing the rhythm itself. So like Distant Bells has this. So you do 6 measures of this hot cup of tea, before you end up doing the actual polyrhythm between the hands. And then there's just a lot of repetition in it. But I tried to make all of these sound like also like not just etudes, but pieces that could be played in recitals. Hopefully they sound like that. But I worked hard to make these musical and not just rhythm exercises. So,
They
so
they
that's
they do sound like real music. Yeah, I can see students loving playing these, and you don't even need to tell them it's an etude. You could just be your little
at
secret.
first, right. I actually avoided calling them etudes in the book, so I gave them all descriptive names. And yeah, so in any polyrhythm, too, there's always one dominant rhythm and then another rhythm that sort of plays off of that. And this is something, one of the reasons I like polyrhythms is they're almost like an auditory illusion where you can only tune into one division or the other, but you can't really hear both simultaneously. So I flip all the polyrhythms. So that was 2 against 3. I flip it to 3 against 2, and all that means is that now instead of 3 being the dominant rhythm, 2 is the dominant rhythm, and we're fitting 3 into that. So whatever the second number is, like if we're doing 4 against 3, that means 3 is the dominant rhythm, and we're fitting 4 into that. And so all of these have like the flipped polyrhythm as well. There's 3 against 4 and 4 against 3, because oddly enough, those two things to me feel like very different rhythms. Even though it's exactly the same rhythm, it depends on how you're tuning into it, or which rhythm you're hearing as dominant. But to me, if I hear 4 as dominant, it sounds different from when I hear 3 as dominant, and 4 against 3 or 3 against 4. So like 3 against 2, I switched it also to 6/8 just to demonstrate that this is the same rhythm. It's just a different time signature. So in this one, you're counting 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a, instead of 1, 2, and 3. But essentially, it's still the same composite rhythm. And with that one, I introduced Dorian mode, but I don't know if teachers probably want to hear more about 4 against 3 or 3 against 4, or I don't know, 5 against 4.
I don't know. They can let us know in the comments. I just love exactly what you said there. It's an auditory illusion. It is literally like a visual illusion that you would see. Once you focus on the duck, you can't see the rabbit, and when you focus on the rabbit, you can't see the duck. And it is like that when you're listening to these things. You focus on one line and you're not actually really hearing the other. And you don't really hear the two together in any true sense. I get exactly what you're saying there. I also love all the subliminal messaging you've got going on here with all the phrases, like, because you chose not difficult. I actually like that better than nice cup of tea. That's just the classic one we were taught. But not difficult. And then we've got this rhythm I can feel inside later in the book. Or you've got, yes, I can play 3 and 5. They're so fun.
Yeah, my students sometimes get mad at me about the not difficult one. I think that one is, that wasn't I didn't make that up. I learned that from someone else.
I've heard that one before, yeah.
Yeah, but some of the other ones, like I can play this rhythm, I can play this rhythm. Yeah, it's funny because it's almost like I've noticed some of my students sort of bristle at that, like as if I'm telling them an affirmation that they don't believe in quite yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tried to make them all sound like rhythmic affirmations, so I'm glad you noticed that.
Yes, no, I love it. I love a good message like that. And we're big into like growth mindset and grit around here, so those kind of affirmations are really useful for just building in. No, I'm going to stick with it until it actually is not difficult. Like, I often tell students that, okay, that's the most challenging bit, so we're going to work at it so much that it's your favorite bit because it's easy. So that's, what these rhythms can be easy and super fun if we work at them first.
That's such a good point. Yeah, because they actually aren't that hard if you know how to approach them. And if you eventually internalize the composite rhythm, like 3 against 5 is actually, and 4 against 5, those are not that hard. Like if I can do them, anyone can.
Yeah, I agree. If I can do it, anyone can, for sure. My coordination is not the most, it doesn't come easy. So if I can do it, anyone could do it. And getting students to try them in all sorts of creative ways. Like you could take a lot of the exercises, you're tapping them out there, but they can do it stamping their feet versus tapping, or playing two different instruments, or, like rhythm instruments, or lots of different ways. So there's just such great scope there for getting creative with it, and with wonderful music. Like, it just sounds good, which is what we're all in it for, right? Even the 6-year-olds. Absolutely. Well, Stacey, this time has flown. I can't believe it's already time to let you go. But it has been wonderful to hear you play some of this music. And we have the link, by the way, in the description, everyone, to the book on Stacey's site, as well as to her own site, where you can learn more about her. So definitely check those out. If you've got any students, like Deb said, most of my students want to explore jazz, so I deal with polyrhythms on a weekly basis and have to practice it often. Yes, we need to keep our own skills sharp. So maybe we need to all pick up a copy of this book and challenge ourselves to each one of them before we even challenge students to it. But I love all the opportunities for creativity. So thank you so much for sharing them with us, Stacey. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Yeah, I'm so happy to be able to share this. So thank you.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, we'll have to have you back on again sometime. But in the meantime, I hope everyone goes and gets your book. And thank you for spending the time out of your day.
Oh, this is lovely. Thank you.